Good evening, everyone. Don't leave yet. We're just getting started. Well, it's great to see such a full house tonight of families in the room and the Pirates. We're excited to be able to recognize you later this evening. So without further ado, welcome to the Brisbane City Council meeting of September 7th, 2017. And we'll start off with a report out from our closed session.
Madam Mayor and Council, the Council met in closed session, and in part of that discussion was whether to meet in closed session, and the Council voted on a 4-1 vote, with the Mayor voting no, not to meet in closed session with respect to the matter that was on the agenda.
Thank you. And now I'd like to call the meeting to order. If you would please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Please note for the record that all council members are present.
Thank you. Adoption of agenda.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to close in memory of Cleo Marshall, a longtime resident of Brisbane. And with that, make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to oral communications number 1. So I have a number of slips. We'll go through these. Some of these are, if they're on items that are on the calendar, then we'll get to that at that time. But if it's not on the calendar, you can speak. Anya Miller, it says consent calendar G-I-N-K.
Yeah, I just not knowing whether you would allow public discussion on some of the items on the consent calendar. I would like to comment on items G, I, and K. And if you don't remove them off the consent calendar, I would so request. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we also have a slip from you on new business item D. Would you like to speak at that time? So we'll bring that back up at that time. And we also had a slip from Faye Conway. She left a note saying she came earlier, but she wasn't able to stay, so she will send us an email with her written communication. Dana Dilworth. Okay, also on the agenda. Tom Hines on the agenda. Okay. We'll make a note to have public comment available at that time. Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak for oral communications on an item not on the agenda tonight? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to the next item, awards.
Oh, Barbara. You had one hand.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. Barbara?
I just wanted to say that I agree with Anya Miller to remove those items from the consent calendar.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Awards. Present commendations to the member of the Brisbane Pirates for winning the 2017 South San Francisco Pony Baseball Championship. Congratulations. So at this time, it'd be my honor to present the commendations. And is there a list, I hope? Okay. And staff report first, please.
Madam Mayor, members of the council, my name is Ricardo Monroy. I am the sports coordinator here for the city, and I'm here to say how extremely proud the Park and Rec Department is of our Pirates baseball team for being the champions this year. I want to thank all the coaches that were involved. I want to thank all the parents for the time they put in, and I want to thank all the players. So without further ado, I'll bring up Todd, our coach. He has a couple words.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My name is Todd Curtis, and I'm the manager of the Brisbane Pirates. I want to thank you for choosing to honor our kids tonight. I think I speak on behalf of not only myself and the families and the coaches, but the entire town to say how proud we are of these kids. Baseball is really back in Brisbane. I want to say that 2 years ago, the Brisbane Pirates had lost every single game. We were 0-14. And one of my many proud moments is that the following year, all those kids who were eligible all came back to the team and played again. And last year, we finished 7 wins, 8 losses, and we lost in the semifinal by 1 run. This season was absolutely tremendous. We averaged scoring over 19 runs a game. Wow. And so we really did it with our bats. We conceded about 7 runs a game. Our record was a 16-game season. We finished 14-2. The other great team in the league was the South City Padres, who ended up finishing first. They only had 1 loss, Chris, and we had 2 losses. But we made it straight to the semifinal, which was a best of 3, and we won the first 2 games. And then the final was a best of 3, and we won those 2 games. So it was a sweep. One of the great accomplishments of this team is that in all 4 games, we came from behind to win the game. So I think our kids really learned a lot about perseverance and teamwork, and I just could not be prouder of all of the kids. Especially want to thank our coaches Bob Kinney and Chris York and Dustin Cohn and also Nick Cohn. And there were a number of parents and grandparents who helped out, Frank Williams, and of course we cannot forget our terrific team mom, Elisa's son. It was a real team effort, it was a real family effort, and I just want to thank you for honoring us tonight, and want to thank the parents and the community for having us here. Thank you.
Congratulations. And is there a video, I believe?
I forgot to mention there was a video by Peter Fang that we put together of our short video of our championship season.
Excellent.
I want to give a great big thank you to the Padres, who is such a great team. They were 15-1 this season. They were the toughest team to beat, and sometimes when a championship, you gotta get a little lucky. But as I told my players, I gotta make your luck.
Good game, Padres.
I'd like to thank Coach Dustin Cohn, Coach Chris York, and Coach Bob Kinney. We've been coaching for a number of years. Thank you very much for your efforts and everything you do. We would not have had the season if it weren't for you. All right, without further ado, let's call for Pirates, 2017 champions. First up is Mr. Jaden Patel. And he is Bufai. Next up, Sebastian's son. Next up, Austin Lucas. Reese Segura. Sebastian Bousquet. Milo Jung. Sammy Khoury. Javier Kinney. Charlie York. Skylar Tiatia. Calvin Curtis. Next up, Colton Thompson. Last but not least, Mr. Mason Cohn. Let's give it up for your 2017 Mustang Final champions, the Brisbane Pirates.
Wow. Wow, thank you for that wonderful video. And I want to just, offer my congratulations. We're really proud of you all, and job well done to the players and the coaches. And without further ado, I'll go ahead and give out the trophies. Would anyone else like to say any words?
Yeah, good to see a winning championship team in the Bay Area.
Yeah. No, great job, guys. You worked hard, and I know that you appreciate your coaches, right? They do that out of the kindness of their heart. They don't get paid for it. They do it for you guys. So just remember that. One day you're going to be an adult too, and hopefully you'll give back like they did. Right. Excellent job.
Good job on all the teamwork. It's the important part.
So proud of you guys. You make Brisbane super proud. I had tears in my eyes when I was listening to Todd speak. I've known so many of you since you were in preschool, and I just can't believe how fast you're growing up. I don't want you to. I want you to just stay small, but the things that you're accomplishing as you're getting bigger, it's just amazing. And keep going. You never know where sports will take you. And I'm waiting for the championship next year. So, congrats, guys.
So we do have some trophies, which also make good photo ops. So at this time, I'll go ahead and present each of you with your trophy, and then we can get a team picture. Okay. And we have a very nice certificate as well. So first we have Aeneas Boofy. Austin Lucas. One more. Calvin Curtis. Don't forget your certificate. Charlie York.
Too many things in their hands.
Congratulations. Colton Thompson. Javier Kinney. Jaden Patel.
No excitement there.
Just want the trophy.
Mason Cohn. Milo Jung. Reese Sakara. Sammy Corey. Sebastian Bousquet. Sebastian Sun. Skylar Tia.
One more over here. Come here, bud.
Oh, one more.
Jaden DeHaro.
Jaden DeHaro. My apologies.
There you go, bud.
And now let's have the team come up and we'll take one group photo with the coaches.
Should we?
One big trophy.
Are we just going to be in the background awkwardly?
Hey, Nick.
Wow, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
All right. Who's playing baseball next year? Who's playing baseball next year?
No. Crickets. They got the trophies in their hand. That's all they think about.
Okay, bedtime, boys.
All right, good job. We can't wait to see what's in store for next year.
Welcome.
Hey, Sebastian, what's up, man? How you doing? Congratulations.
Thank you.
How you doing, Jess?
Being a good mom. Safe all day.
buddy. Thank you, Sebastian.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, Jennifer, take care. Huh?
See ya.
Aw, good job.
Hey, good job, buddy.
He's got like
Good job.
1950s and some 60s.
I like it.
You know, maybe that's what it is.
We gotta have things like this more often.
And it just
Win
looks
championships,
like,
I guess you do it.
Yeah, you would think it was good enough.
but equipment is equipment.
I guess you're right. Probably
Yeah. I mean, and it really does. Somewhat.
You can give it to me. Thank you.
She was.
But it just doesn't even
Doesn't matter.
right? You know.
Yeah,
Yeah, because I
it
don't
doesn't
think this is a team that you have to qualify. I think we try out.
All right. Okay, so moving on to the consent calendar. So we have a suggestion to pull items F, G, I, and K. Anything else?
I had B and J to also pull. I'm sorry. I'd like to also pull B and J.
I want to pull M.
M?
N? There is no N.
M.
M. Okay.
M is in Mary.
Okay.
And
so-
pardon me, Madam Mayor, at the risk of being rude, could staff ask that you pull item L as well? I know that's a first, that staff actually pulls one of our own reports, but there have been some changes that just came up today.
Approve all the ones that didn't get pulled.
Okay, so
Second.
Is that just
is that a
A?
second?
Yes.
So that's
A,
items A,
C.
C, D, E, and H, and J.
Oh, okay.
Wait, sorry, one more time.
H, not J.
You pulled J?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. Okay, so it's a motion to approve items A, C, D, E, H,
That's it.
and that's it.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
No, we're pulling I.
Okay,
The joke
so
tonight. I like it.
we've approved those items, and now we're going to go to item B of the consent calendar, City Council minutes of July 20th, 2017.
I just had one comment to make on the page 3, second paragraph, where it stated that after council discussion that we directed Mr. Wang to work with the city manager Holstein, and I believe that should add on the upcoming meeting that that they were having. It wasn't that we were approving the Friendship City agreement because we only had a staff report presentation. We didn't have discussion on the item. And so I believe that it was to work with them on that one specific meeting that they were having that was coming up before our next meeting. So I just wanted to add the clarification on that.
Okay.
And with that, I'd make a motion to approve item B.
Second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item F. Adopt ordinance number 617, zoning text amendment RZ-6-16, waiving second reading to adopt regulations for personal cultivation of medicinal and non-medicinal cannabis and medicinal and non-medicinal cannabis businesses. Staff report, please.
If the council's willing, just whatever questions you might have on the item, we weren't planning on presenting a staff report for this.
Okay. Who requested this to be pulled?
I requested that it be pulled, and I'm just trying to get through to my, it came out of order, my paperwork, that is. I talked with the city manager today, and I had a couple concerns with the item as it was written. There's in the ordinance, section 1, item 8.12.03, definitions.
What page you on, Terry?
They're not numbered, but it's page 1 of the ordinance itself. That page is not numbered.
Okay.
So it's about 2/3 of the way down the page, and it talks about cannabis cultivation area. And it says that an indoor cultivation area is measured by the interior dimensions of the room, whereas prior in the ordinance it said the area would be on exterior 100 square feet measured by the actual plants. And I find it going to be hard to say that you can only grow marijuana in your home in a room that's less than 10 by 10. I think that the area of cultivation should be 100 square feet, but that we can't really say that the room can only be 100 square feet because most people would not have a room that met those criteria, so it would put people in violation of the rule by having the maximum dimension of the room be a 10 by 10 room. Does that make sense? And I brought that up to staff for a correction. It's on how they measure the room, because, I mean, most rooms are 10 by 12 or 12 by 12, and it'd be hard to have somebody make a smaller room for that.
Where's that written in the in the ordinance?
Harry, I don't know, city attorney, it seems, doesn't seem like to me the language says it's specified to the room itself. It just.
Well,
It's okay.
the way that I was reading this is that when you look over at section 8.12.050 under standards for personal cultivation, under A1A, says cultivation must occur in one cannabis cultivation area. The cultivation area shall not exceed 100 square feet.
Right.
That's the cultivation area. The definition indicates for indoor cultivation area, the cannabis cultivation area shall be measured by the interior dimensions of the room or structure. I think Councilmember O'Connell's point is that there could be an inconsistency there because you could have an indoor dimension of a room that would be, let's say, 120 square feet rather than 100 square feet. Was that
correct?
Your concern?
And even though you're only using 100 square feet for cultivation, you'd be in violation because that room is larger than a 10 by 10 room. And most homes do not have, other than the bathroom, which is excluded in this, a room that is less than 10 by 10 square feet.
So maybe what we'll just say there under the definition is for indoor cultivation areas, the cannabis cultivation area shall not exceed 100 square feet.
That's
work?
fine.
Okay.
That's fine with me. It's just an inconsistency that I found and I thought should be addressed since we were waiving the second reading.
Okay, we can do that.
And that, again, my notes were that on item 8.12050 that it was item B or A was the discrepancy to that. And then on page 3, item D at the top of the paragraph, it's talking about exterior cultivation areas that must be secure. And it says that the qualified patient or caregiver, that all gates must be locked if the qualified patient or caregiver is not in the immediate area. And that needs to also reflect the person over 21, because we're changing the rules to be consistent with medical and non-medical. So it would, again, be an inconsistency to not have that listed. On page 4, item 8.12.070, penalties. Item A is addressing where we are having penalties for not following the rules that are previous in the chapter. And it states that it would be a misdemeanor, but that a judge, the trial court, could, upon recommendation, of the prosecuting attorney reduce it to a misdemeanor or an infraction. And while I don't want to see grow houses in Brisbane, and that, an egregious exception from the rules or not following the rules should be enforced that way, when we look at cannabis businesses, the section on the cannabis businesses, if there's an infraction on one of the rules, such as odor, the building of the an officer from Brisbane would mention it to them, and if they didn't correct it, then it would go to enforcement. And in personal growth, it is making it a problem where it would need to go to court if there was something that someone was brought to their attention that they were in violation, like an odor coming from the home would automatically go to a court with a possible 6 months in jail for having an odor, when we should find a way to have someone be able to go to that person and let them know that they're in violation before it goes to a court order. So to be consistent with a business owner and a resident having the same kind of violation, we have very different criminal penalties, and I don't think that's correct. So I'm not sure how staff wants to address that.
A suggestion might be that we could eliminate the penalties provision from this part of the ordinance and simply rely on the general penalty provisions in the Muni Code. And under those sections, there's a number of different ways that a violation can be handled. First of all, there'd be the education and the compliance to get the person to go along with it. But if not, then you have administrative remedies that are available, and you also have criminal citations. The difference under the general provision is that while something can be charged as a misdemeanor, the enforcement authority, which would be our office, can charge it as an infraction rather than a misdemeanor, so you wouldn't have to request the judge to do it. We would initiate that process itself. And also, so you would have the infractions, but the potential for infraction rather than a misdemeanor. The penalties are a little different. Rather than 150 and 250, they're 100, 200, and 500. So what we would suggest, if this is a concern, that we eliminate the penalty section here, and we would simply rely on the general penalty provision in the municipal code.
Is that, Terry, before we go on, I'd like to hear from the police commander on this. Are you okay with what the city attorney's saying?
Yes, actually, that would simplify things to a certain extent, and it falls within our mission, which would be to educate and then get compliance and then enforce. It would be a clean way of handling it, so we would support that change.
Okay.
Great, thank you. And then on item 1702-109 on page 4 at the bottom, we listed cannabis businesses with descriptions, but we did not we excluded businesses, retail sales of cannabis or cannabis products. And then we don't, where it says distribution, manufacture, it should say distribution, manufacture, retail sales, or warehousing, and then strike the second line, because that is included in item C, cannabis retail delivery.
Yeah, that one had me confused.
That we would concur. You might want to call it retail delivery to be consistent with the language in subsection C.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just was excluded from that line and listed as a separate item that was not legal, and that's something we had discussed as a council that we'd want to put that in. And with that, that's the only. On page 10, item D, odor control, and I think that should be the language that we put in where the penalties phase had the we want to make sure that there's odor control, but we want to have it as a code enforcement officer reach out and education. So I just wanted to highlight that that's where that was repeated in that ordinance. And with that, I don't have any other questions, but I know that I do see some people in the audience that wanted to at least make sure that we had addressed some of these issues before we pass this item. And then a gentleman who spoke the last time at our meeting, Freddie, and I apologize, I did not get his last name, called me today. He was the guy who was nervous about speaking the last time, and he was out of town, but he did say that he had met with the city about other cannabis business possibilities, and that he was hoping that we would keep an open mind as far as how this ordinance worked. And I was wondering if the city, he was going to send us a presentation. I did not get it before our meeting tonight, and I didn't know if the city has any input from what his concerns were that they wanted to share with us.
Well, he actually came to the Economic Development Subcommittee a week ago or so, something like that. So there was kind of two aspects to his business. One, that they're looking at some warehouse space or trying to secure warehouse space, and that would fall within the ordinance. They were looking at some retail delivery on basically where they're located with another business, right? At 1 San Bruno, that would not be allowed for under this ordinance.
Okay.
I spoke to him as well. I did get the presentation, but I did not have a chance to review it as it came in so close to when we were meeting for closed session, but I can forward it to Ingrid. I know that the concept for 1 San Bruno, if I just kind of remember correctly what he wrote to me, was for like a cafe style model in that space. So, but I can forward that to Ingrid and everyone can take a closer look. I know he said he reached out to a couple of you. I don't know if you had a chance to speak with him. I know that at the last time we spoke about this, it wasn't the council's pleasure to allow for normal, just regular walk-up retail. I'm still open-minded with that concept, but I think it's okay to take baby steps and to start with a retail model and potentially look at this in a couple of years once California has had more of these businesses around. But I just want to state for the record that I'm open-minded on that idea. So that's all I have.
Yeah. So I had met Freddie after the citywide garage sale. He lives, or his current storefront is on San Bruno Avenue, and so, San Francisco. And so he wanted to have a meeting with the city, and I said, well, maybe we'll do an economic development subcommittee meeting, because he was thinking of perhaps expanding his operation and doing something like this at the 1 San Bruno location, which has been vacant for years. So he met with Lori and myself and staff, and they showed us these different products. I mean, I was pretty amazed by all the different products that you can make with cannabis. But then again, I mean, at Trader Joe's, you can buy hemp cereal, which a little granola thing, and of course it doesn't have the drug part of cannabis in it. But they had shampoos and underarm deodorant and a whole host of different products, and so their concept was to have, like you said, a cafe also selling these variety of products. And so it actually changed my perspective on it. And so because he wasn't promoting, say, like a vape shop, And I've seen these vape shops, and definitely not something that I would like to see on Visitation Avenue. But the concept of having a cafe and these products, it seemed like, okay, well, maybe that's something that we should explore later on in the future. So I was comfortable with that.
Perhaps, without going into, really changing this ordinance, would there be a way to add something that would allow it in the code as not a permitted use? And is there something stronger than a conditional use in the language we could do at all?
What are we doing here? I mean, we addressing this ordinance, or we?
Yeah, I think we're going off track a little.
Okay.
And I just want to say for the
Well,
record.
I'm curious about. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just asking for information. I don't think, Cliff said at a later time. I don't think that we're gonna launch into that right now. But I think I think it can't hurt to know if you can do that or not.
Well, it could be done. We can't do that on this ordinance without reintroducing it, but
Right.
if the council is interested in the future of allowing this kind of use, either as a conditional use or permitted, that's within your discretion to do. It's just that if we were going to do that tonight, we would need to reintroduce the ordinance, because I think that's a really substantive change to what we have.
Yeah, it is.
There's just nothing that's stronger than a conditional. Correct.
Well, with the
That gives
changes,
you-
and again, if there's members of the public that would like to speak about this, I'd love to hear from them. But otherwise, with the changes that the corrections or the changes I've made, are those too extensive to change the second reading?
No, I think those are clarification issues. I think we're okay on a second reading for those changes.
That's fine. And I just wanted to give my take on the Economic Development Subcommittee meeting, since Cliff spoke on that as well. So I was personally very surprised to hear that they wanted to have a retail establishment that sells cannabis at the, corner of San Bruno and San Francisco Avenue, because, my understanding was the council's consensus that we were only going to allow that in the industrial park for now. But they said that it was going to be, they were hoping to have deliveries, pickups in the morning and maybe in the evening. And I was concerned about both the traffic impact and also the fact that it would be an establishment that would be only open to adults. I mean, we're not talking like a cafe for kids. We're talking about like an adults-only shop. And I said that is such a key location in my mind that I would want there to be some community benefit tied to it, so that if they were going to allow, if we were going to allow them to have retail cannabis at that location, that I'd like to see something that the entire community can enjoy at that location, such as on the outside of the building facing the park, to have a coffee shop, a soda shop, an ice cream, whatever, something that could then be enjoyed as, a community benefit for allowing that to happen there. Because, personally, I'm okay with, I understand, the cannabis industry is growing and there's a lot of potential for revenue, but that location to me seems to have I have some hesitation because of its proximity to the park. And to the residential zone, and I wouldn't want to see a lot of truck traffic during the day. So I think it's something that the council, can entertain in the future, but I wouldn't want to change the ordinance at this time.
Yeah, I don't want to change the ordinance right now.
Okay. Well, with that, I would make a motion to, unless we have.
Waive the second reading with the amendments.
And
we have people.
Is there anyone from the public who'd like to speak on this item?
You don't have to.
Come on up. And can we turn the podium around for her? Please state your name.
Hi, my name is Denise Gregory. I live at 99 San Bruno Avenue. I'm one block up from 1 San Bruno Avenue. And I just want to say even though I'm for the marijuana use, I concur with you about the location. I wouldn't want a liquor store across the street from the park. I don't want a cannabis business across the street from the park either. So I just have to concur with you on that. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Come on up.
I just, it's no complaints. I just wanted to say thank you again for being so open-minded. Just to reiterate how much time you guys have spent putting effort into thinking this through, and to offer my my efforts in being open to you guys to be a liaison for anything you guys need for education, and to offer myself as a cannabis kind of I work with San Francisco, so anything I can do to help you guys kind of bring this in here, and I just wanted to say thank you, and I realize how much effort you guys have put into education, and thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Okay, seeing no hands. So do we have a motion and a second?
I made the motion.
Okay. And who made the second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Okay. So, thank you. Okay. So
That was F.
That was F, and
G.
So G, I just received a slip on that. So G, adopt resolution number 2017-41, amending fiscal year 2017/18 capital improvement program to include Tunnel Avenue rehabilitation project. Staff report, please.
There is no staff report, ma'am. We're happy to answer questions.
Okay. Whoever pulled this item, was anyone from the?
It was a request from the public, I believe.
Okay, from the public. Okay, so we have a slip from Tony Varios.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'm surprised that there is no staff report on this tunnel project. It's $300,000, I understand. The little bit that I got of it when I sent you a note today was that it has something to do with the northern part of tunnel that Brisbane owns that's not the private part, and that it has something to do with repairs. But that's just so vague that I think the public would like to know what exactly is involved for this $300,000, and what's the need to do it now as opposed to next year, 5 years from now, or what, and is it going to be something that's going to be done today and then ripped up 5 or 10 years from now? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anya Miller.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council, I have both a compliment and concern. And the compliment is that it's nice to see something being done on tunnel. It really is our part, our street, and we are responsible. And evidently there's money. But again, this is a big item. Should have been brought up. We should see a map. What are we talking about? I think our staff is disregarding the public in a serious way, in my mind. We've had occasions like this before, and I just don't like it at all. Our public deserves any big changes to the budget that you've adopted 2 years. You know, people don't remember. The second thing is the bike. I understand there's going to be striping for bike way, and of course San Francisco, just north of us, has striping. The bicyclists come. During our bike to work day, we've had 200 bicyclists bicycling down tunnel every day to work and back. They do not use Bayshore, which is striped, because they're sort of up and down, right? Tunnel is flat. And so now we have San Francisco directing their bicyclists down tunnel, on their part of tunnel, and then we are continuing it 1,500 feet, another section of bicycling, and then what happens? They come to the private section, UPC-owned tunnel avenue that they're responsible for maintaining. And there was, back many years ago, there was a separate bikeway built right alongside tunnel for that private part, and they were responsible for it. And what is happening? Why aren't we enforcing previous agreements with the private road owner to facilitate and make it safe for those bicyclists coming down San Francisco and then on this new fixed part of tunnel and then running into the competition with car traffic? It's a safety question that your police should be supporting any effort to make the private owner collaborate with this public project to make that bikeway possible. So I do hope that you return to this item and pursue it in such a way that, and this had nothing to do with the Baylands. This is a separate previous agreement on tunnel, and they've destroyed the previous bike road there. And it's a separate, safe Class 1. It was a Class 1 bikeway. And why they are allowed to do this destruction, it's just wrong, to my mind.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Randy, could you give a little spiel about what that 1,500 feet is, what this money's for on this one?
Sure. So it seems that despite my best efforts, the new requirements of SB 1 that was just chaptered this year and the requirements it imposed on the Street Highways Code have confused people other than public works directors throughout the state here. SB 1 is the bill that many of you have heard about, and most of you have heard about it. What you've heard about is the 12-cent excise tax that it put on gasoline, and it was really intended to supplement a state transportation fund so that we could deal with the local streets and roads issues, which are deteriorating at a rapid pace. One of the requirements that they imposed in there, and that it really was necessary to get the two-thirds vote across the legislature, was to ensure there was going to be transparency and accountability. So the reason this is being brought forward now, when the staff report was put together, the California Transportation Commission had established standards that said, by September 15th of 2017, you have to tell us what project you're going to put this on. You have to tell us its location, you have to tell us how much of a roadway, you have to tell us what its purpose is, you have to tell us what its new extended life is going to be. If you don't do that by that date, you will not get your money that's coming to you the next year. Notwithstanding the fact that we don't even start getting money until January 2018. And at the time, the staff report was being prepared, and bear in mind, this is fluid. It's actually just, some of it's just changed a little bit from conference calls that I was on today. They were telling us that if you didn't have that in, not only were you not going to get the money, but you might not get the next year's money. And if you didn't have it in and you didn't have it fully complete, you weren't even going to be able to use the money that you got that year. So it was getting to be really crazy. So that's why it's in there right now. It is a vague description. This is not a notice inviting bids. It's not a set of plans and specifications. It's really not a whole lot different. If anything, it's a little more detailed than what you normally see in your capital improvement programs. We give you the general description of a project. We tell you what we think its estimate's going to be, and we tell you why we're doing it. And that's all we're doing here. And we're just doing it early in advance so that we comply with state law. Mm-hmm. And I think, Mr. Conway, to answer, I think the question you wanted, I believe you thought there was a question earlier about where it was going and wanted confirmation that it's going to be on public roads. And yes, of course it's going to be on public roads. I guess staff just makes the assumption that everybody's familiar with the California Constitution. There's an article in there, I think it's 16, which specifically prohibits the use of public funds for private purposes. And staff knows where the private roads are. We're not going to go out and start paving roads for developers that are owned by others. So yes, it is going to be only on a public road.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I have a question for Randy too. So Randy, all the funds that are going to be used for this project, they're all coming from these three
outside sources. Yes, sir.
Right.
Yep.
So nothing's coming out of the general plan.
Absolutely not, sir. No, not as it's funded, as it's proposed to be funded right now. Correct.
Got it. All right. Thank you.
Deanna Dilworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I originally was wondering why we're not dealing with Lagoon Way, and if you're aware of the current condition and or have a car that bottoms out in deep rifts and valleys, you would know that the place where the tankers turn to go to Kinder Morgan on Lagoon Way, turning into tunnel, is in a very poor repair, and especially when we have water, all those dips fill. And I think that that's a priority over some place that fits a qualification to get a grant. The second thing is that one of the other places where we have a road that is in very serious disrepair is the Sierra Point Parkway, where the dip is prior to getting to the rail yard. I think that that's really unsafe, and I would venture to say that dealing with the unsafe places are more important than cosmetics to something that is, at least as far as I know, is not in as bad of disrepair as Sierra Point Parkway if you're looking for a place to use that money. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I have no more slips on this item. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Barbara Ebel?
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Your biggest fan here. So I just wanted to say I concur. That's the nice thing about coming up last, is everybody's already said what I need to say. I agree with Tony and Dana and Anya. I don't know if this money could have been used for bike lanes, but I think we need a separated bike lane along Bayshore even more, having biked that both Tunnel and Bayshore myself. At least Bayshore, you're not really, at least Tunnel, you're not really competing with cars quite as much as you are on Bayshore. I mean, those big trucks come down Bayshore and you feel like you're just going to get blown into the mountain. So yeah, I agree with Dana. There's some other projects that I'd like to do first, and I think that this is kind of a big deal that we're hearing about this on. I mean, I know staff has been kind of thrown for a loop too, but we're hearing about this on September 7th for something that has to be in by the 15th, and I know they feel like they're doing it further in advance, but the community would really have liked to have had some input and some clarification, because I knew there was a private section of Tunnel Road, but most of it is, I believe, in the hands of UPC, and I really wasn't fathoming how you're going to spend $300,000 on the little tiny bit that is public, but I guess that's what roads cost. And then I was just curious on the staff report said total funds available for this project are as follows. Regional discretionary funding, $137,000. Developer exactions, $150,000. This is kind of what made me think maybe it was part of UPC's land, because we have almost half of it is developer exactions, and I don't know what developer is out there except UPC. And then the RMRA money, it's just a little bit. So, I think I've made some good points, and I don't know if you'll want to actually respond to them or not, but I think the community's priorities are a little bit different here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item?
I'll take a shot at the last one, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
So the developer exactions were for 2 use permits that occurred on Tunnel Avenue adjoining this area where the project is proposed. And the exaction was specifically to repair the roads here. It was the bus storage lot. And then it was the original bus storage lot and then its expansion. So that money is dedicated and has to be used there. And as we looked at the project, we realized that there was going to be some drainage issues that were going to be required to be fixed. We realized that the public wanted to have some of the bike lanes put in there, and those exactions weren't going to cover that. So that's why we took these other outside forces and put them there. So the developer exaction funds can't be used anywhere else. They have to be used here. And the remaining 2 funds by themselves aren't going to do a project anywhere else. So that's why this area is selected.
I have a question.
Okay.
I do think that part of Sierra Point is really can get you if you don't know that it's there. So I know that's not included in this project, but does Public Works have a plan for looking at that part of Sierra Point Parkway? You know the one I'm talking about?
Lagoon Way, you mean? Or the Sierra Point Parkway? The Sierra Point Parkway before you get out to the Radisson, the Doubletree?
Yeah,
Whatever
right
it is
under the freeway.
Absolutely.
It's like it dips.
I have a conceptual plan, but I don't have the dollars for it yet, ma'am.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I have one question for staff. Once we submit this to the state so that we get the matching funds or the discretionary funds, is it possible to revise the project, notwithstanding the developer exactions that we would need to use at this? Is that possible, or does it look like there's pretty strict limits that we use them where this is being proposed?
Ma'am, I wonder if you've been listening in on my Public Works conference calls, because nobody knows the answer to your question yet. This bill was just chaptered. It was just passed, and everybody is trying to move at a high rate of speed because they recognize that the taxes are going to start being assessed against people in January, and there's a huge push. I mean, if you've followed this bill, it's been one of the more contentious bills that have happened in the legislature over the years. You probably, I'm sure as elected officials, you're aware that there are state legislators down in the southern part of the state whose offices are being challenged because they voted for this and they ran against their party. So everyone from the governor's office down is trying to say, get the money on the street and do something with it. I was just having conversations this afternoon at 4 o'clock with the league and the state controller's office, and the question was, if I'm not going to get all the money for the first year because it's on a fiscal year till the end of June, can I spend it in March and loan myself money and pay myself back? And we were running around with that because it's not clear in the legislation. So the imprecise answer to your question is, I believe there's some leeway, okay? So the California Transportation Commission has been put in charge of this program. They are in a very unenviable position. They have a lot of eyes on them. They're trying to make this happen. They are also very much trying to work with the cities and the counties and the state because we want to get this money out. So we're all pushing together here, and we're all trying to get in that same direction of, trying to get our pavement condition indexes in our city up. And we're doing the best we can with what we know right now. And if you ask me in a year, I'll probably have a much better answer for you because we'll have been through one cycle and we'll have worked those details out.
Great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
I'll make a motion to adopt resolution number 2017-41, amending 2017-18, the capital improvement program to include Tunnel Avenue rehabilitation project.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
And can I ask staff if you could research what Anya brought up about Tunnel Avenue, about the bike lanes? Because I know that's been brought up before, and if we can find what the agreement is, it might be something enforceable.
Yeah, the city attorney's office did some research on that, and we can resurface that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on to item I on the consent calendar. Adopt resolution number 2017-46, authorizing execution of cooperation agreements with San Mateo County for participation in the housing and community development programs. I take it there's no staff report.
And just a clarification for the audience, there's staff reports on all these items, but since they're consent items, staff doesn't usually prepare an oral presentation, but we're here to answer any questions.
Got it. Okay, so this was polled by members of as suggested by members of the public. Were there any council questions before we get to the public? No. Okay. Barbara Ebel?
So I was really hoping for a staff report on this one because I read this and I couldn't make heads or tails of it. Like the language is so vague. I couldn't, as a citizen and an involved member of this community, I couldn't tell what the heck it was that City of Brisbane was signing on to. So, and I just would like to know, at this point I would like to know more. I'm not going to berate you with a bunch of questions and hypotheses until I can even make heads or tails of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any staff response?
So I can try to provide some heads and tails to this. This is actually an arrangement that the city of Brisbane, as a small city as it's categorized by the federal government, has been involved with the county for literally decades. It has been something that has been administratively renewed over the years. Every 3 years they ask for an update. We have, it essentially allows us as a small city to apply for grants in certain areas of housing and urban development under block grants. Being a city under 50,000, we're not considered an entitlement city. Cities over 50,000 get a certain amount of money a year just based on their size. If you're under that, you have to, you're only eligible to apply for grants. So this simply allows us to be able to do that. We haven't been applying for grants under this program for some number of years, but that doesn't mean that there might not be something that would come up or some new need that the city had that we could potentially have some purpose for applying for grants. So that's basically what the program is.
Thank you.
A lot of that was in the staff report, but I still don't have any idea what this money's used for. Is this the Habitat for Humanity money? Or what? How does this money actually get into the community? What is it used for? What kind of programs? You know, I guess I understand this language about small cities, big cities, but because that was pretty self-explanatory, I just don't know what its impact on or benefits to the community are.
Off the top of my head, I can't tell you specific programs, but there are a variety of federal programs that come through the block grants. There are housing and urban development. They might be through other federal agencies. Again, we haven't been participating in an aggressive way in recent years, but this would simply allows us to be able to make those applications.
Thank you. Ani Miller?
I have some historical effects again. We have had our main one and only really big federal block grant was fixing our streets in the 70s, and we applied for that directly through the MTC. We got it over $3 million. We now don't have ditches. So that's fine, but I see here that this is in cooperation with the county, San Mateo County, and I read the text and HUD definition of what the money is for, and I see two words there that really raised the hackles of my historical knowledge. Urban renewal. This money is for urban renewal, and you know that our city was founded to prevent urban renewal by the county, proposed for all of Brisbane. They were going to just change the entire town, and that's why we were founded, to guide our own future. Here we are now cooperating with the county for urban renewal, and I want you to know that, what that may bear, and you have to be very, very careful and maybe specify what you would use it for, like for affordable housing or something like affordability directly to people assistance for affordability, something like that, instead of urban renewal. Watch out.
Thank you. Tony Barrios?
Mayor and City Council, I'd just like to say that reading the item that we're on now, you can't understand what it's for unless you've read all of the background material, which most of us haven't, and most of the people, anyone watching it probably has not. And when city manager made his comments to try to clarify, if I understood him correctly, I think he's saying that the only reason to approve this measure is to reserve the city's rights to apply for money. And if that's correct, then that's no problem, as long as there's no obligation on the part of the city to do anything that it doesn't want to do. And I think that's what you, as a city council, need to make clear to everybody before you vote on it. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any staff response to that?
I would agree with Mr. Barrios. That's exactly what it is.
And Clay, I know you said that we've been doing this for a long time. We've been a part of this ever since you've been city manager, haven't you?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
previous city managers, and
I've been involved with this kind of a program for almost 40 years.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Can you speak to things that have been funded through being a participant in this program?
I'm really drawing a blank because I know in other cities that I worked in, we used it for a variety of nonprofit funding, everything from domestic abuse shelters to child care things, all sorts of different kinds of nonprofits in the community. So that was another city that I worked in. I know that we also used it for in another city. We had a fairly robust low-income home repair program that we provided loans for, and we used CDBG funds for. So there's a variety of different kinds of funds that change over time depending on the goals and priorities of the Congress and the administration.
Any other questions, comments?
My questions that I had listed on this was, has Brisbane received funds from the program in the past and how long we'd participated? And I think that it was sort of answered that we've participated, but we haven't received funds for, for knowledge in the recent past. So I'm assuming that the city attorney doesn't believe there's risk associated with signing this agreement, and it just adds value or population to the group, and so other cities are the recipients of these funds?
Well, it does that, and I don't think there's any particular harm to the city. We may, we're part of the program. If there's some funding available that we could use, then we would be in the queue, so I don't see any downside of entering into the agreement.
So I have a question. So in thinking of what kind of activities we have going on now to assist lower income residents, what about the Brisbane Village Helping Hands? That's a community group. The city supports them. They help a variety of residents, some of which may have lower incomes and need assistance. That's why they need assistance getting to appointments and doing home repairs, et cetera. So I think it might be helpful to look into see if that type of program would qualify for funding.
Yeah, this conversation is probably a good one because I think what I'll do is I'll have a staff person do some investigation in terms of the types of programs that are out there that we might possibly consider.
Okay, great. Thank you.
And just to not belabor this too much longer, I do recall that the reason this is coming forward is because HUD did make some changes to the cooperative agreement, and what HUD requested was that any of the participating cities in this program readopt this new cooperative program or a cooperative agreement. So that's one reason why this is coming forward at this time, because of a change to the text of the agreement itself.
Clay, can you check to see if also if this could be applicable to Tiny Home Project? I know we were approached by that nonprofit regarding that idea, so that could be a really interesting way to use those funds.
Mm-hmm. Great.
And so the agreement is the same for all the cities that are signing into it. It's a form basically, and do we know if the other cities have any other cities have signed in, or if they've had issues or any conversations?
I don't know if other cities have entered into it. I know from working in other cities that this same agreement has come to those cities that I've worked in, and it's been approved by those councils without concern, because again, it's simply a modification to what's been on the books for a long time. But HUD was requiring that all the cities who participate in this program adopt this revised agreement.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any more slips. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? No.
Okay, I'm comfortable with it. Make a motion to adopt resolution number 2017-46.
Second.
Authorizing execution of cooperation agreements with San Mateo County for participation in housing and community development programs.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Moving on to item J, adopt resolution number 2017-43 and support for the Home for All San Mateo County initiative. Okay, so.
I think I pulled this one.
Okay.
Well, while I feel that this is a very lofty and aspirational goal to say we are supporting for homes for all in the county and the region, I also worry that this is something that could come back to haunt us. And I'm not sure that there is a benefit to the city of Brisbane to pass this resolution at this time. I'm not quite sure what the benefit to the city to do a supporting this initiative the way it's written would be to the city. So perhaps the staff can give us a reason why we would want to do this at this time.
Well, I think this is one of many efforts that are happening countywide to address housing issues. As I see this is not committing the city to any particular actions. It's a program that the county is supporting and has funded to try to provide information and technical support to cities as they grapple with various sorts of housing issues. It's frankly something that might have been of value for us early on in the Parkside process, but by the time this got going and where we were with Parkside, we were kind of beyond the need for this. Mm-hmm. I guess I look at it a little bit differently. I think given everything that's going on, that it might raise eyebrows if we didn't sign on to a resolution that basically doesn't commit us to anything. It's just more of a, I would call, feel-good resolution.
Yeah, and to echo that, so I've been, as mayor, attending their meetings along with the city manager, and like Clay said, it doesn't commit us to building housing in any part of our city. It just means that we're supporting their initiative, and by supporting it, it means that we're able to, I attend the meetings where they had, they're calling it the Learning Network, where cities share ideas about how they're creating more affordable housing, how they're engaging with the community, what types of housing they're creating. At the last meeting I attended about maybe 2 weeks ago, I learned that many cities had applied for the pilot project, which, as Clay mentioned, would have been very potentially helpful for us in the Parkside plan, perhaps for community engagement assistance. And so I think it shows, a good faith effort to recognize that the housing crisis is a regional problem, and to support the county and to participate with the other cities in the discussion.
Terry, I know where you're coming from on this too. I have a tendency to agree on one hand, but on the other hand, I say, it says, whereas between 2010 and 2014, San Mateo County added over 54,000 new jobs, while only 2148 new housing units were built in the county. Now, I know for a fact Brisbane has built over 50 homes, well over 50 homes during that period, and we lost jobs during that period. And one of the biggest employers was VWR. So Brisbane is not the problem with this. And the rest of the county built out, and you know what's happening now. So I think this kind of highlights stuff that we've done that all the rest of the, I really want to use some inappropriate language right now, but I won't do it. Didn't do.
Well, I worry about, and I know that we got a presentation on this at one of our meetings, and it's just that, the last sentence basically, while this sounds aspirational, that this isn't committing us to anything, it does say that the City Council of the City of Brisbane commits to continue to work with other jurisdictions in the county to address the housing crisis on a regional basis. And so I just worry about what the implications of this are. And
what if we change it to will? Is it
strives?
Strive. Yeah. Use a different wording instead of.
I just don't like the word that we're committing ourselves to do this. We'll strive.
So the last paragraph.
The last whereas.
Well, there's a couple places committed. Yeah, I would be happy with strive.
The City of Brisbane will strive to work on housing issues like that.
Yep.
On the last whereas, and then use the same language down below.
Mm-hmm.
Now therefore, City Council, City of Brisbane, blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
Will strive.
Yes. Because I think we want to work on housing. That's
absolutely.
why we're doing Parkside.
So, Michael, I mean, does that really change what this says? I mean, to me, they seem the same, but
But if that's what it will take to make somebody comfortable, I'm happy to do it.
Again, if we're going to put some language in there that because you have concerns, maybe we should put something that's different.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It's up to the council how it wants to word the whereas and its resolve. If you're more comfortable with the City of Brisbane will strive to work on housing issues, and the City Council commits or strives to work with other jurisdictions. That's, your wordsmithed it, but that's your discretion.
All right, make a motion then.
Second.
I think just will strive addition, and I'm okay with that.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion and a second.
Oh, we haven't got the motion yet, but I'll get it.
I made the motion.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Sorry.
And
as amended?
As amended. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Okay. Item K. Approve memorandum of friendship city relationship between Panyu District of Guangzhou City, the People's Republic of China, and the City of Brisbane. Okay. So I have a slip on this item from Anya Miller.
Yes, the same concern here again, that you are proposing a historical document binding you to something international that the city has never done before. So this is a historic thing, and here it is in a consent calendar without any discussion, public input, or a recommendation even from your subcommittee. All you had was a presentation by somebody and a mayor making a private trip not authorized by you all. And this is the basis for an agreement, an international agreement. My technical comment was, as a translator, that because it's in two languages, there should have been a certification by a translator that the language in Chinese and English is the same. I understand some translator has been consulted and an email has been received that it's correct, but in my work with international documents, the certification has to be formal, written, and notarized. And I've been to Ingrid many times to have my certificates notarized on international documents. So, I mean, I really think this is totally new in the history of Brisbane and should be discussed. There's no rush on it. I don't know why it's such an urgent matter. We did have experience with international exchange through the sister city agreement with Brisbane, Australia. That was for a while, had no written agreements whatsoever associated with it, just letters. We invited people to come, maybe. No, they invited us first, and then we reciprocated very modestly with youth exchange, teacher exchange, people exchange, not business. No business was ever mentioned. And this resolution is all about business, and you are being obligated to cooperate and arrange and host and participate. This is really, you should be thinking about this. The people should be allowed to talk about it. So please postpone decision on this. Thank you.
Thank you. We also have a slip from Dana Dilworth.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. I too have a problem with this document, and I have a problem with the language that's being used, because I'm wondering, while I can come up with what pragmatic means, but pragmatic cooperation, I'm not quite sure the legal definition of that. In number 2, it says the two parties shall actively promote the cooperation between both enterprises. And it's my understanding that at least my experience of the sister city we have with Australia, is that this is a really passive relationship. And that in the 30 years I've been here, I think there's been one trip to Australia and back. And so I love the idea of sister city, but I do not appreciate the language that's in here. Part 3 says the two parties shall introduce each other in the respective media to promote tourism resources. I grew up in a town that was a tourist, Newport, Rhode Island, and so I know what tourism's about. And I know that you have kiosks and you have a department of tourism, or and so I really question what this means. Does this mean that our Channel 26 will be running 24/7 invitations to going to China? I mean, truly, what does this document mean, and what, if you approve it today, what are you getting obligated to do? I find this very irregular and think you should rescind it as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Tony Barrios?
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I was here the night that the gentleman came to speak to us all on this program. And while I'm sure that nobody in Brisbane has the least bit of objection to any business in Brisbane doing business with China and fostering the city, helping to foster those relationships, that's not a problem for anybody. The question is, what's the proper relationship? I don't see why any business that's operating here now would be handicapped if they needed help in reaching out to Chinese businesses. They can go to the county, they can go to the state, they can go to the federal government. There are many, many programs that are set up and funded specifically to help businesses build those relationships. If I'm wrong, please advise me. I don't see where we need to put our noses into this business. And I agree with Anya, and I agree with Dana. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I just add that I understand that Chamber of Commerce, our Chamber of Commerce, has signed their agreement with their counterpart in China. Okay. So that to me is very appropriate, business to business, making their kind of agreements. But this is you're really extending the city into a business relationship and an international one at that, with a country that's maybe in serious conflict with us, and you should consider all these things. This is a very big thing. Please don't do such a thing so quickly.
Thank you. Yep.
Good
microphone.
evening. Thank you. I would like to agree with the people that just spoke.
Can you state your name, please, again?
Do what?
Can you state your name?
I'm sorry. My name is Denise, and I live on 99 San Bruno Avenue. I would like to agree with the people that spoke before us. I like the idea of sister cities, sharing maybe of information, but not on a business scale. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak on this item? Carolyn?
I think we should pull this for the time being. I don't think the people in Brisbane know much about the city, and to enter into a business agreement with another city that we really don't know much about. I know that our mayor has an idea, and there was a presentation which I wasn't here at, and I didn't watch. It just seems that a friendship with a city is one thing, but we don't have any information about this city. I imagine it's a lovely city. I just don't know anything about it. So I would like it pulled at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? No? Okay. So just to answer some of your questions. So I'm sorry, Carolyn, you didn't get a chance to watch the video from the last meeting, but there was information provided on this city. And the reason why this city has been brought to our attention was that Victor Wong from China's Silicon Valley approached us, and he said that the city is interested in visiting our city and in conducting a visit similar to the last visit that we hosted with the city from a district in Chengdu, China, which I had visited on my last trip. I haven't been to this city before. And Tony had mentioned, well, aren't there other resources that can help businesses connect to cities in China? And I'm sure there are other resources, but the businesses that we spoke to in Brisbane said that they would love to, expand their businesses into China, but they didn't yet have those connections. So by doing this would be, acting as a liaison to be able to basically forge those relationships so that they could talk to their counterparts in China. And while I know many other cities, perhaps in the past, like in Brisbane, Australia, maybe they didn't put things in writing. This is just the way things are done in China. They whenever they go to visit other cities internationally, they like to have these sister city or friendship city relationships. And it is just about promoting cooperation. It isn't committing us to, spending any money on hosting them, or committing any money for trips from us to go overseas. And also one of I spoke with a council member in Menlo Park who said that they have a similar relationship with a city in Japan, and she said it's beneficial not just for the economic benefit of cooperation, but also for the cultural exchange. In the Menlo Park, they recently hosted a group of high school students from Japan with a city that they have a friendship city agreement with, and the students came over, and because of this friendship city relationship they have, they were able to arrange for some homestays for the students to stay with students in the United States and have a cultural exchange. And then they also had a trip arranged for students from Menlo Park to travel to Japan. So I think it's really just about, extending our international cooperation, and I don't see a problem with it.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. This friendship, relationship agreement here, is this it's kind of like a boilerplate type of, agreement that, like all cities just, have, with, say, another city in China or this particular city? Like where did it come from? Like, how was it?
Yeah, I think it's pretty rote. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's...
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know, like, the city of South San Francisco has friendship city agreements, with some cities in China.
Yeah, when I was in China, I saw many other cities entering into friendship city agreements where they, they had already gotten the approval from their city council, and then they were presenting it in China and, signing the documents there. And so it's very common for cities to do this, and both throughout San Mateo County and the Bay Area.
So didn't you sign something when you were in China as a...
No, we didn't. We didn't approve any sister cities.
Well, the city didn't, but I thought I saw you or Mitch signing something, pictures of you signing some document there.
There was the Chamber of Commerce had an agreement with a city in China, but the city did not. The city of Brisbane has not signed it.
So for me, reading this, it does sound like a contract, and that it becomes effective. It's not, there's no exit from it. There's no description of what it really means.
3 years.
And, it says it expires in 3 years. When you talk about having, cultural exchanges, that's what Rotary clubs do, that's what Lions clubs do, that's what chambers of commerce do, but I wouldn't want to put our city into this agreement for a city we don't know anything about, and we don't know what this really means. What would be expected, and that we are going to be held for 3 years to introduce and promote in the media and other places. It just doesn't seem like it's something that a city our size should be getting into. I'm not comfortable with it.
Michael, this agreement here, it's not a binding agreement. It's just, it's just stating that here are some things that the two cities could do together, either with business or with cultural exchanges because of tourism. Education. These cities are doing this because they want to do business in the United States. And they're looking at the Silicon Valley area. We happen to be in that area, right? San Francisco down to San Jose, and so again, it's just really more of a establishing lines of communication. We don't have to do anything with them, but. Like the mayor was saying, here Menlo Park's got that relationship with Japan. Maybe if it was Japan, it would be different, and people would be okay with that. Or maybe it was some country in Europe, and they'd be okay with that, But because it's China, maybe that strikes a stone in someone's shoe.
At risk of moving this along, I agree with Terry, and I agree with what Anya said, that this really is kind of more of a chamber function, so I'm not going to vote for it. And so, Madison, it's up to you.
No pressure. There are things about it that I like. I do think that it's great to build relationships with other cities across the world. I think that exchanging information is a good thing, and I think promoting business is a good thing. And as a city, we talk about wanting to bring business to our town and being a city that really wants to focus on a thriving business community. We talk about that all the time. However, there are a lot of things about this that bother me. Particularly, I don't really like the way that it's written. Like, just the way the words that are used, it doesn't seem very clear. So I have concerns about that, especially item number 3, which a lot of people have already brought up. The two parties shall introduce each other in their respective media to promote their tourism resources. I don't quite know what that means, and I don't know what that would entail. And I don't know, if we would really gain much benefit from people planning their next trip to Brisbane. I just don't see how that would be super beneficial for us. So because of that, I like what this is trying to get at. I don't like the way that it's written, and I do have concerns with item number 3. So for that reason,
So if it was written a different way, are you okay with it? I know your father, he went on one of the trips.
Yeah. So my dad did go on one of the trips, and there is, an agreement that came out of that with the Chamber of Commerce, which, is definitely an area that's appropriate to happen. But like I said, there are things about this that I think are vague, that I don't like the way that it's written, and number 3 in particular concerns me. So, if maybe you want to come back with something else later. I know Carolyn mentioned let's give the city more time to look at it, have people understand where this place is. I'm of course open to revisiting it later, but with the way that it is written now, I'm not.
Yeah,
I don't want to support the way that it's written.
I feel I feel the same way. It isn't like it's got to be done tonight.
Right.
I think these things are good for our city and all cities to have good lines of communication, to exchange cultural ideas, educational ideas, economic ideas. When you do that, you make you make humanity better, and so. I think, like what you're saying, you have some language here that's vague and you don't like, and that's why you have the discussion, and so, yeah, I'd like to see us maybe then tinker with the language. Maybe do some more investigating about this area of China and this city. And, maybe, we find something that we don't like about it, and okay, then let's not do it. But if it seems fine, why not? I think that's kind of cool for Brisbane, to have a friendship city relationship with another city in another country. I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I would support staff coming back with a report on this, and I think it's good to give citizens kind of some more time to understand what this is about. Citizens have recommended don't rush it, bring it back. I think that's totally fine. And, I have to admit there are probably cities around the world where I don't really want to be friendly with. It's
Definitely.
true. I could
was,
name like 5 right now.
Moscow, yeah, absolutely not.
Or,
if this was,
North Korea. So,
Korea, absolutely.
North Korea. So, I think before, and I don't think it's a place like that. Obviously, Lori's been, if it was awful, she would have told us. But I think, for each of us, we should be making an informed decision what this city is about and what kind of trade they do. And what type of businesses that are predominant in this city. I think it's important to give citizens some more time to review, and there is some language in here that I don't really like. So
can you clarify what would be your suggestion, for example, on item 3?
I don't really want item 3.
No, I think this is important. Like on the item where, with cannabis, Terry was giving specific suggestions on language, and then we were able to pass that item. So I think this is really.
Well, I think they're the ones who build these. They're the ones who build these relationships. So I think they should tell us what they mean by. I think there's things that are probably lost in translation when they say the two parties shall introduce each other in the respective media to promote their tourism resources. We should be asking them, what are you expecting of us? What does that mean to you? Because they're the city who creates this, so they have an idea of what they're looking for, what that means, how often that should occur. So I think that's something that we should get clarity on from them, and then decide if that's something that we are willing to do, and then come back and say, hey, we're not willing to do this every single week, but we're willing to do X, Y, and Z instead. So, they're the ones who create these documents and these relationships. They know what they're looking for.
Well, if I may, through the mayor, Clay, we could write up our own language. We don't have to go with this. And
Well, we've succeeded in getting everybody wanting to talk about it now.
So I'm just saying, right, Clay? I mean, we could if again, it's really, does the city want to have friendship city relationships? And if the answer is no, that's not appropriate for the city, then we shouldn't even move it forward. But if we do want to do it, then okay, then let's maybe we write it up in terms or how we'd like to see it, and then bring it back to us, and then we send it to them. If they say, hey, no, we don't like it, say, okay, whatever.
I agree. I think we should come up with what media efforts we think are appropriate for our city.
Well, I think rather than going fishing for the language that's proper in this, I think it's a chamber issue, not a city issue. And while the city supports the chamber and is one of the sponsors of the chamber, I think that's the proper method to go through, where it doesn't put the city at risk of some agreement that forces it or may compromise it into doing certain tasks that we don't know what they are.
Okay, well, I don't think we'd ever do that, but I mean, but you're against our city being a friendship city, or are you not against that? I mean, we could write it up the way that we want to.
It's like a system.
I think we should bring this back at another meeting because we're still on consent calendar and it's almost 10 o'clock and I need a break soon too. We're going to get in the weeds trying to get really into this.
I think maybe you think it's a chamber issue because you're looking at it from, what our chamber does, but it would be helpful, I think, for you to understand what the relationship is in China between the government and the businesses, because they are much more closely linked than they may be here in the United States.
Motion to table item.
I think it would be helpful for you to understand that.
So I think we need something
why
like
these agreements.
I understand business is very different in China.
Table item K.
It's government owned.
Second.
I'm sorry.
Motion to table item K.
I'll second that.
I second it.
Oh, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'd like to see staff come back with the information that Lori is asking. I'd like to understand what the agreement between our chamber and is it this city in China, another city in China? I'd like to know exactly what that agreement is, and then we can discuss further. I think what we would like to see out of a friendship relationship, and maybe parts of this that we don't like. Maybe there's something that we would want to add that's not in there.
So it sounds like I know Terry said she's not in favor of this kind of agreement, period, coming from a city. So I'm hearing from Madison that you would potentially be willing to look at it with more clarification.
Yes, I would.
Clark, is that?
I would be willing to review this further.
Okay.
Quite frankly, right at this point, I don't see the point. I think I think at least the people we have in the audience are kind of really skeptical about it, and that if we do bring something back, okay, I'd prefer not to, but if we do bring something back, that we have more of staff report and it allows people to comment on it in the public type hearing, because apparently there's a lot of apprehension.
That's fine.
In the audience, so.
Okay. And Madison, you had suggested that we look at the agreement that the chamber entered into. I think it would also be helpful to maybe reach out to other cities. Like I know South San Francisco entered into an agreement on that same trip.
Yeah.
To see what a city to city agreement looks like.
I just feel like I need more information, and there are a lot of questions that I have. So
sure,
I can look at that further.
Is there more public comment, Barbara?
Move it on.
And then.
Yeah, we
called
the question.
Yeah, we
okay.
We already
all eyed. Okay, let's.
Oh no, I think three of us said.
Okay.
Okay. So I wasn't going to comment on this because I didn't really care very much, but now I'm against it because you're going to spend how much of this community's bandwidth and how much staff time on an agreement that nobody really cares about, and we have so much better things to be doing, and I'm nothing against having a sister city. I just don't think that it's going to provide us with any really unique opportunities. I'm not even apprehensive. I just kind of think it's a waste of time at this point.
Well, okay, so the timing, just so you know, this city is planning on visiting us. They were supposed to visit us in September or October, and they postponed that trip, but it is coming.
Well, I think that will give us a lot of more clarity about, the city we'd be partnering with. It would be great if there's a community event at that time. We can invite them, people from the community who have questions or apprehensive. I think it's easier when you put a face to the name sort of thing. When you have that cultural exchange and you see what other people are like, I think that's okay for them to visit. I think that, maybe we should discuss this after we've met with them.
Okay. Very good. Okay. I think we've had enough discussion on this item, so in light of time, I'm going to move on. So there was a motion and a second to table this and bring it back. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you. Okay, item L on the consent calendar.
Yes, ma'am. Item L, that's the one that staff put on, and then staff subsequently asked you to pull.
Okay.
It's another chapter in the book of everything the Public Works Director is dealing with lately. Seems to be changing by the hour. So we're still adamantly opposed to SB 649. The League of Cities continues to adamantly oppose it. This is really just a blatant attempt by the telecom companies to come in and to change the permitting process for antennas so that they become ministerial and over-the-counter. And also at the same time, they want to fix the maximum dollar amount that each city in the state could charge, and they want to have unlimited access to all city assets. So that means if this were to pass, they could come in and say, I want to put an antenna on all your streetlight poles, I want to put an antenna on all your traffic poles, and in fact, under the definition of vertical infrastructure, we also want access to your buildings too. So we think that's a terrible idea. When I wrote the staff report, the bill was suspended in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, and at that time we had 216 cities that were signed on board in opposition.
Good.
Just this afternoon, it passed out of Assembly Appropriations, notwithstanding the fact that there's 260 cities that are opposed to it and on our written record. It's going to go to the Assembly floor next week, or perhaps early next week. So in talking with League staff, I would change my recommendation. Instead of asking the council to approve the letter and authorize the mayor to sign it, I would ask that the council authorize the mayor and whatever other council members choose to contact our assembly representative, Mr. Mullen, and strongly suggest and request that he oppose the bill when it's brought to the floor, because we are just so close that writing a letter is not going to make a difference. It's going to take contact from one or more of the council members for Brisbane to make a difference. So, and I'll be happy to take questions on this.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
Perhaps we could FedEx the letter so that somebody has to sign for it and it actually gets there along with the outreach.
Yeah, well, that's fine, but I think personal contact is even better. So, is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. So it's a motion to authorize the mayor or any other council members to contact Assemblymember Mullen and voice our opposition.
Thank you very much.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Almost done with the consent calendar. Item M. Approve resolution number 2017-40, confirming the city's commitment to safeguard the civil rights, safety, and dignity of all community members. So,
I pulled this one. I just want to state first that I'm a little disappointed that this is a consent calendar item. It was, if I recall correctly, a normal agenda item the last meeting when we didn't get to it, and then it was put on consent calendar. So I'm a little bit frustrated with that. I did voice strong concerns regarding this resolution when we brought it forward, and I'm happy to restate those for you. So in the time since we've met, both San Bernardino and Stockton have faced losing funding for certain projects, and if I understand correctly, Stockton does not have a sanctuary city. It's not designated as a sanctuary city, but they have a resolution that, I mean, is still basically the same thing. You're just calling it something different, which essentially this is what I feel that this is. So theirs is like a civil rights sort of resolution, and it's still enough where the state is threatening, or they're losing some federal funding, or they're being threatened to lose federal funding because of having something like this. Now, I remember from our last conversation, this doesn't really change any of the way that the police department handles anything. Without this, the police department would approach everything business as usual. So this doesn't really make a big difference with the way that our police department operates. I am okay with the resolution, but I do have some areas of concern, and if they are addressed, then I'd be happy to move forward. So I, of course, want to be a city that is open and, protects everyone and respects everyone's differences. However, I do get concerned when we move into areas when we're talking about immigration. I do think that's a very controversial topic, and I would hate to see us in a space where we could lose some federal funding in the future. We don't know how long this political climate will last, and while we may not get lots of federal funding or any right now, we don't know what position we'll be in the future. So on section 2,
Madison, do you want to table this and have it looked at? I don't think there's any hurry on this, is it?
I'm fine to table it. I'd like to get through the rest of the agenda.
It's just that since it was first brought forth, it seems to, it had momentum in
Yeah, I mean, why don't you just tell us where you have some, like, it sounds like you just need some wordsmithing in some areas, and then we can pass it.
Yeah.
Instead of, bumping it to another meeting.
Okay. So section 2, it's on the second page. The Brisbane City Council opposes deportations based solely on immigration status, which tear apart families and communities, and calls upon the federal government to promptly legislate a pathway to citizenship for undocumented immigrants. I think that having something like this in here does make it a sanctuary city type resolution. And, we committed to not making this that type of resolution, but to make it something that is protecting civil rights and things like that.
Okay. Strikes section 2.
So I think section 2. And then I don't think that we need to state section 3, because that already happens anyway, but I don't think that we need to call attention to that, because I think that also drifts into that sanctuary city zone.
Okay.
And those are all my corrections.
And did you look at the resolutions that were passed in San Bernardino and Stockton to see what language they had?
I didn't. I just saw it I was looking at it on the news, but I know this is a very real thing that is happening. And it was mentioned that they aren't designated as sanctuary cities, but they do have resolutions that are very similar to what we, that are like the civil rights sort of resolutions. So I just think to err on the side of caution, it's always something that we can add later if we feel really strongly that this is something that we want to put back in. But just because I'm seeing it happen to other cities in our state, and we've already said that this is not a sanctuary city resolution, that there is language in here that mirrors that. I think if that's what we're committing to, then I think we should look at those two items, or those two sections.
So with that, would you be okay?
Absolutely.
So you can make a motion then?
Yes. Or I can make.
I just have a comment that I think it's sad that we even have to do something like this.
I agree.
I
agree.
That I question what this country is coming to, what this state is coming to, and I have fear for our future generations right now, because there's something that's going on and that is a total level of weirdness. And this bi-party system of Republicans and Democrats does not work. It no longer works with the people we have in office today, from the federal to the state.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So
totally dysfunctional.
So I did want to make a comment on this, and I too wish that we wouldn't even need to bring this up. I mean, this is like stepping back in time. And I've heard that the state of California is looking at becoming a sanctuary state. So at the state level, they're looking at trying to pass something like this. And again, it seems redundant that we need to do this. And I'm happy to support it with the changes that Councilmember Davis has suggested with removing section 2 and 3.
All right, I'll second Madison's
Motion.
Modification.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I request a really fast break?
Yes.
Okay.